Many people dread communication classes because they have communication apprehension, which is basically anxiety about communicating. They could hate standing in front of crowds. They could be not super confident in their writing skills. They could have a difficult time organizing their thoughts. Communication apprehension is an incredibly common experience across almost everyone. What are some times that trigger your speaking anxiety? Managing our communication apprehension is essential for effective and engaging communication. That anxiety can be physical. It can be our heart racing, our chest becoming flushed, sweaty, shaking, breathless. It can be thoughts where we're worrying, we're constantly predicting the worst case scenario, or it could be anxious behaviors where we avoid situations or activities that involve a certain kind of communication. What is communication apprehension? Well, in the same way that people in music and athletics have performance anxiety, people in theater get stage fright, or when you go to a public event, you might get social anxiety. People get that same sort of anxious feeling about communicating. It could be writing, but often when we're talking about communication apprehension, it's specifically about speaking. Communication apprehension is the fear or anxiety associated with ongoing or anticipated communication with another person or persons. It could be in the moment while you're communicating with someone that you feel anxious, or it could be simply knowing that you need to communicate with someone. There are some negative consequences of having higher communication apprehension, such as that we communicate less and often with poorer quality. We can be perceived as less successful when we are very anxious in our communication and more indecisive. So think again, when are some times or situations that specifically trigger your speaking anxiety? Is it one-on-one settings, small group settings, or large group settings? Is it at work, at home, at school? Is it with a certain person in your life or in a certain context, like in a job interview? Next, we're going to talk about different ways of dealing with our communication apprehension. The first way is probably the most obvious, which is skills training. And this is good when our anxiety stems from perceived or actual lack of skill. If we just even think that we're not so good and other people think we're fine, but we think we're not so good, we can still reduce our communication apprehension through skills training because we gain confidence in our ability to do it better. There, anxiety is reduced through experience and training. Basically, we practice. We can do that in class and outside of class, and we can engage in targeted practice. Targeted practice is when you evaluate yourself as a communicator and think about what are your specific strengths and weaknesses. Oftentimes, students want to work on speaking slower or louder if they're anxious. Something with my targeted practice that I'm trying to work on is communicating with the same volume throughout the whole sentence. Oftentimes, I find myself trailing off at the end of the sentence where you can't hear me anymore. So that's something that I consciously try to work on. Not so much regarding how we're communicating, but what we're communicating can also be related to skills training. So if we gain more knowledge about the thing that we're talking about and more expertise about that thing, it can help us feel less apprehensive when we have to communicate about it. I encourage you now to think about a time when you could seize a practice opportunity. It is now 8:45 and TJ Maxx will be closing in 15 minutes. Please bring all your purchases up. You could volunteer to give the announcements at work. If you're religious, you could volunteer to do a prayer for your family or even do a reading at the place you worship. Not to make myself sound like a really cool cat, but when I was in my first year of college, I told myself that I wanted to talk to 3 new people every day because I felt uncomfortable in social interactions. It was pretty awkward sometimes, but as you get better and better and better, it's a lot easier to have those conversations, and it built my confidence up and reduced my communication apprehension. In addition to skills training, another thing we can do is cognitive modification. So cognitive in our brain, modification, changing, altering. This is good when anxiety stems from the bad thoughts that we have in our brain. We say, I suck, I'm not well prepared, I'm going to embarrass myself, I don't know what I'm talking about, everybody knows more than I do. And there's 2 different ways that we can do cognitive modification. The first way is through visualization. Oftentimes when we're entering an interaction that we're anxious about, we're imagining the worst case scenario. We're watching ourselves mess up in our brain. We're imagining ourselves getting laughed at and not in a good way. Through visualization, we can use cognitive modification to envision what would happen if things went right. So in the context of public speaking, for instance, if you were totally prepared, you'd been well practiced, you're dressed in something that makes you feel comfortable and confident, you walk up there, you're smiling, your classmates are smiling back at you, you start your presentation, and you don't mess up at all in your introduction, your flow is really good, you make your joke and your audience laughs, it seems like they actually know what you're talking about, you look at your PowerPoint and you're impressed with how good it looks, you sit down and you have a booming round of applause from your classmates, and then later on you end up getting a grade that you're happy with on the presentation. This idea of visualizing things going well is related to the self-fulfilling prophecy. If we tell ourselves we're going to do poorly, we have a better chance of doing poorly. If we tell ourselves we're going to do well, we have a better chance of doing well. Another way we can modify our cognition is through positive self-talk. That's when you tell yourself, I'm smart. I know what I'm talking about. I've practiced. I'm going to be good at this. There's a reason why when you go into elementary school classrooms, there are posters all over the wall with inspirational sayings and things like, you are smart, you are kind, you are loved, because it really does change the way we think and feel about ourselves. Seriously, don't get embarrassed. Don't pretend like there's not anything nice about yourself. What's something nice you could say about yourself? What's another thing? What's another thing? What's another thing? Try it out. Even if you don't actually believe the positive self-talk, just tell it to yourself anyway. Start out doing it ironically and see what kind of an impact doing that over and over and over again instead of telling yourself bad things can have on your mental state. Systematic desensitization is good when anxiety stems from an emotional reaction to the event of communication. So systematically, with a method, we are going to desensitize ourselves, so make ourselves less reactive to communication. This can happen psychologically as well as physiologically. We want to stop ourselves from even starting to think those bad thoughts and visualizing those bad things happening. So we need to become less sensitive to the communication. And then physiologically, when we do start to get nervous, instead of our body going into hyperarousal, we need to dial it back and calm our nervous system down. With systematic desensitization, we can reduce our anxiety through progressive exposure. This is related to that skills training that I mentioned before, but with progressive exposure, we're starting with something small. Challenges that push us just a little bit. So maybe when you sit down in a classroom, instead of having to talk to 3 new people every day, start with saying hello to your neighbor. Then next time, tell them that you like their shoes. Then next time, ask them how their weekend went. Then next time, tell them something vulnerable about you. We're slowly building ourselves up to larger challenges, and we want to actually feel that anxiety. So when you say hello to your neighbor, notice that anxiety in your body and notice how after the interaction, it was fine. Everything went fine. We're going to try to control that anxiety. So next time when you sit down and give them a compliment, we're going to say, everything went fine last time. Calm my nervous system. It's going to go fine again. Do it again. And then we're constantly building ourselves into larger challenges. And then you can do that on a grander scale too. Maybe you give a presentation to a small group of people. You workshopping your presentation with your coworkers. Then you give a presentation to your entire team or internally within the company. Then you give that presentation externally to your customers and clients. That progressive exposure, when we feel that anxiety and try to control that anxiety in ourselves, is systematic desensitization. We can also reduce our anxiety through relaxation techniques. For example, we can focus on taking deep breaths or breathing in through our mouth and out through our nose. We can work on muscle relaxation, so we can tense up our muscles and release them. Tense up our muscles and release them. We can do that through our whole body. We could start with our feet, tensing up those muscles and relaxing them all the way up to our chests and our arms. Anything that we can do to lower our blood pressure, that's a way to help me relax. Drinking water, swishing the water around in your mouth is a way to help you relax. Putting something cold on your pressure points to help relax ourselves. We can also use behavioral routines to help us focus and prepare. Tennis players, they might play with their racket strings before they hit the ball, or basketball players, they spin the ball several times and bounce it, the same exact little routine every time before they shoot a free throw. We can do that same thing with communication. Maybe on your way to class, you put on some headphones and listen to some pump-up music. If you're driving in your car, you sing loudly to the music to help yourself feel comfortable hearing your voice and confident getting that voice out of you. Maybe before you give a presentation, you know you need to read through your note cards 3 times. Right before you go, you need to look over your note cards 1, 2, 3 times, and that will help you feel better. Maybe you need to do a lap around the building before you do a presentation. Finding these behavioral routines that help our body feel good and relax our body can help reduce our communication apprehension. I hope you understand communication apprehension a little bit better now. And you have some tools to help you deal with your communication apprehension. First, we have skills training. That involves practicing your communication skills, but also growing your knowledge so you're more confident in communicating about various topics. Second, we have cognitive modification, which involves positive visualization and positive self-talk. And third, we have systematic desensitization, which involves progressively exposing ourselves to more anxiety-inducing communication situations and also working on using different relaxation techniques. Try one of these strategies out. If it doesn't work for you, move on to the next one, but don't give up. Communication apprehension is definitely something that you can overcome or at least make a little bit better for yourself. You just have to believe in yourself. Positive self-talk.